Morning, everyone. How's everybody this fine morning? It's kind of a grey, overcast, bit of a dull enough day in Drogheda, but at least it's not raining, which is always a positive. I hope everybody has been well. I'm back from a couple of weeks off, which was lovely. It was really fun and nice to kind of be able to switch off and not think about anything to do at work. And I went up to the beautiful Donegal with my family, and it was absolutely stunning. One of the most beautiful parts of the country I think I've ever seen. So, and I found a new love in surfing. That's it. I'm going to get into surfing big time now. If only I could learn to swim, that'd be fantastic too. Anyway, I hope everybody has been keeping well. Today I'm sporting a little pink spotty number. So I hope everyone has their coffee and is ready. We have a few questions today to get through. I want to thank the guys who sent in those questions, and hopefully we can get a bit of learning for everybody, and you might find it useful. So look, let's get straight into it. So this is a bit of a longer one, but I think it's one of those ones that there's a couple of elements to it that could be good to get into. My 8-year-old daughter has a good friend in our neighbourhood. She plays with her friend and her brother often, both at our house and at theirs. We aren't super close with her parents, but with their parents, but we are acquaintances. A couple of weeks ago, the kids were playing at our house. It was getting late, and I sent them home. 20 minutes later, there was a knock at the door, and it was the mum with the kids. They were all in tears, and something was very clearly wrong. When I asked questions, the mum said she and her husband had been having difficulties getting along, and her husband had been drinking a lot, and they had just gotten into a huge fight. During the fight, her husband snapped her phone in half and threw it at her, missing her, and went through a window. The kids were present when this was happening. They left and came to our house immediately after. The mom did not want to involve the police, but seemed clearly afraid of her husband. She eventually went home, and the kids ended up staying at our house for the evening. When I brought them home, both parents were there, and the vibe in the house made me very uncomfortable. Once the dust settled on the situation, it was a good opportunity to talk to my girls about being in respectful relationships, that it's not okay for anyone to hurt or intimidate you, or for you to feel afraid of your partner, or vice versa. My kids have never been exposed to anything like this, and I would love to get your thoughts on how to talk with the kids and better reinforce the topic. Additionally, given the current situation, I'm finding myself concerned about having my daughter play at their house. If there was another angry, violent outbreak, I wouldn't feel good about my daughter being present or caught in the middle. We're allowing our daughter to play with her friend, but only at our house. I don't think I'm overreacting, but I'd love to get your thoughts. Also, the new rules have brought up questions from our daughter as to why she can't play at her friend's house, and I'm not sure how much detail to go into with her. Any advice you have is very welcome. So it's a really difficult situation, and it's a very difficult situation because a lot of elements are very much outside of your control. So I think there's let's take it up in a couple of sections. So I suppose the first thing is your relationship with this couple. As you say, you're not friends, you're acquaintances, and that's probably by consequence of your children being friends. So that's absolutely okay. And it's sometimes hard when somebody presents a situation to you that you are unsure of how to react, because you don't necessarily know how long this has been going on for, what might be some of the other issues that might come up for the family, and sometimes you don't know whether or not to give someone advice, or sometimes you just need to be an ear. But the other side of it is we all have a duty of care to children in general, and it's one of those things where we need to make sure that we feel okay that the children are safe. Now, we also want to make sure that the mum is safe as well, but ultimately she is an adult, and her situation is her situation, and she needs to take control of what is within her control within that situation. So maybe just lending an ear to her if she does come to you again at some stage. She may not need advice, maybe she will, and she might ask for it. So you could ask her if she does come to you again about whether or not she wants some advice, and if she says yes, great, give it to her. If no, that's fine. Obviously, some of the advice I might be given to this mum is to maybe look at taking a break and herself and the kids to get out of the family home, or see if the dad can take some time away, maybe go visit some family for a little while to get a bit of a break and try and get some perspective, because it's very difficult when we're in a situation. So people will find it easy to pass remarks or to make comments about, what's she doing with him? How can she keep herself and her kids in that situation? But that's all fine from the outside. It's very different when you're in there, and it's very different when, you love somebody, but you've built up a life with this person, and you want to make your family work as best as you can. So people don't just give up on situations and try to work together to make it a bit better. So it's absolutely okay for her to be in that situation without people passing remarks, which is really important. But the flip side is then, if she is feeling uncomfortable or under threat, well, then that's something different. But that's her stuff. So let's focus on the kids here. Do you feel that the children are safe? It's a very simple question to ask yourself. Now, you may be sitting there saying, well, it's not my place to do anything about it. And that may be so. But if something were to happen to any of those children, how would you feel about it? How would you feel about the fact that you had concerns and didn't act upon it? So what I'd say is, if this becomes a recurring issue, or if the kids present with regularly being upset with a given situation, it might be something that you might need to report to the authorities. Now, it's a big step. I'm sure, I get the impression you're from America, so it's probably pretty similar to Ireland, where you can contact social services or the police in a kind of an anonymous way and have this conversation. So do you feel confident enough that if the situation were to arise again, that you could actually take that step and make sure that those children were safe? Now, there may be backlash if people find out that it was you, if the family find out that it's you, and that's something that you really need to take into account. But are those children going to be safe? That's the most important thing. You've done a really good job already in terms of supporting the family, taking the kids out of the situation for a night, and that's really, really positive step. The next side is, how do you discuss this with your children? So it's really good that you use the opportunity to talk about what's a kind of a positive relationship and what might be what we don't have to accept in a relationship. Your kids are, you've got an 8-year-old, so your kids are relatively young, so they may not even be processing this. So it's good that you had the conversation, but you don't need to go overboard with it and delve into tons and tons of information about relationships and healthy relationships. It's a slow process that you can build up over time, because your kids may not take it on board because they're not thinking about relationships at 8 years of age. They're not thinking about who they're going to marry at 8 years of age. But you now have evidence that you can refer back to moving forward with your kids, that if something does come up for them, or that if something on the TV presents itself or on the radio or whatever it might be, you can use this example along with the other ones to back up the discussion around being safe and comfortable within a relationship. Probably the biggest difficulty for you right now is the conversation with your daughter around why she's not allowed to go to the house. I agree with you. I don't think you're overreacting. Given that the mum has said that there's ongoing issues between herself and her husband, and the fact that he is drinking heavily, I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable allowing my child to go to the house, and in case something were to happen. Now, things will change and may just go back, and you may feel more confident with her going to the friend's house to play. But maybe look at the times. Maybe dad isn't there. Maybe it's a case of, you're home before dad gets home from work, that kind of thing. Not necessarily having that discussion with your child, but that's how you work it. But you can also talk about your role in keeping your children safe, so they are aware of a healthy situation because they're aware of what's happened to an extent. So it's absolutely okay to say that we want to make sure that you're safe and okay, and for the moment, until things settle down, we're just going to stay outside of the house. That's absolutely fine. Now, your daughter may not be happy with that, but that's life. It's one of those things we need to learn, that sometimes we have to do stuff that we don't want to do necessarily, or that aren't where we want to be, but that's just life. So it's uh, it's okay to sit down with your child and say, look, that's the rules. That's it. You don't have to get into a big dialogue. And I think that's one of these things that sometimes parents find themselves getting into really, really deep, and then you're in deep just explaining something or talking about something, and you realise halfway through going, I should have stopped this 5 minutes ago. There's literally no point, because most kids just kind of switch off after a while. It is the rule. That's it. There's no discussion. You are not allowed to go to that house at the moment. You can play with the children, but you're not allowed into the house at the moment. And that's just the way it is. Don't get into a big discussion about it. You don't need to explain yourself any more than this is the way it is for the moment. I hope that's okay. It's a very, very difficult situation, but something that it seems like you're using it as a good opportunity for learning for your kids, but also for yourself, in terms of, reassuring you that you're bringing your children up in an environment that is a bit more supportive and not as volatile maybe as this family are going through. So I hope that helps. If you do have any more questions, or if something does come up, please do come back to me and I'll have the discussion with you around it. Good morning, Jennifer. It's nice to be back. I had a lovely vacation. I look well rested. I'm not too sure. I didn't get to bed too early last night, so I'm feeling a bit tired this morning. Right, next one. Our son turned 13 a few months ago, and it's like someone flipped a switch to turn it on the adolescent moodiness. He has always been a pretty good-natured kid, so this is a noticeable change in his personality. He's also had an amazing growth spurt in the last 6 months, and his energy levels seem to be affected. His dad and I laugh about it amongst ourselves, but I do wonder if we should be concerned. Are there some signs that we should be on the lookout for, that this is something beyond typical teenage hormonal stuff? Straight away, what I'm sensing is it's just typical teenage stuff. So it's normal for kids to get a lot more lethargic, a lot more moody, because the hormones are literally firing all over the place. They cannot control them, they cannot process them. And the other side of it is, you're dealing with a child who is, in his mind, not a child anymore. So all of a sudden he has a space to say, hold on a minute, who are you? He may have gotten taller than you guys, or pretty close to your height. Then all of a sudden he's feeling, well, I'm not this little kid anymore, I'm a man. Unfortunately, the brain hasn't developed at the same rate. So what I'd say is I wouldn't necessarily look out for any signs, unless the lethargic side of things is where you're finding that you're getting calls from the school to say he's falling asleep in class. Then you need to look at, is he getting enough sleep at night? Is he going to bed early enough? And sometimes what can happen with teenagers is, and I don't know if this is the case for you, but if there is a games console in the bedroom, or a TV in the bedroom, or a laptop in the bedroom, or a phone in the bedroom at night, there's a big distraction there to keep your child awake. So that can have an impact on their time that they're going to sleep. I was actually working with a young guy yesterday, and he was so happy with himself that he got his sleep pattern back. He was, I think, 15 or 16. He got his sleep pattern back to normal, that he was going to sleep at 11 o'clock, which he hadn't done for probably a year and a half. He was just staying up all night playing games, and he literally had no energy. He was unable to process anything in school, and he really struggled. So we've been working for quite a while, and it was great to hear him take that ownership himself and say, I need to get my sleep. I need to do something with my life now, where I'm not just playing games, where I'm not just staying awake till the early hours of the morning and then not being able to function the next day. So keep an eye on it. If he has got a console or anything like that, or a phone in his bedroom, maybe look at knocking the Wi-Fi off. Maybe look at taking it out of the bedroom so that there isn't the temptation to keep him awake. And it's not a criticism. It's, adults do this all the time. I know grown men similar age to myself who will sit and play games all night. it's just what they do, and that's what keeps them interested. But it does impact. The other side of it is that their bodies need sleep. All our bodies need sleep in order. So your child is going through a